This is episode number 506 of the Health and Fitness Podcast, brought to you by InnerFight in association with Smith Street Paleo. Hop over to smithstreetpaleo.com and get involved in all that paleo goodness. Welcome back to another edition of the show, folks. This one is an absolute blinder. I'm joined on Skype by the founders of Ultra X, a gentleman by the name of Jamie Sparks and also Sam Heward. Jamie is an incredible ultra athlete. He has rowed across many oceans, including the Atlantic. Sam is a previous MDS finisher, also did UTMB in Oman in December. You remember that race. And these guys founded the brand Ultra X, which is bringing some really awesome adventure races, ultra running races to the world. It kicks off with the race that I'll actually be participating in, that we've been promoting through the show in Sri Lanka in April. They've got a load to tell us. Enjoy it. Welcome back to another edition of the Health and Fitness Podcast, folks. And now you have heard or seen or had to listen to me go on about this running malarkey for a while now. Yep. I first started ultra running probably back in about 2013, 2014. And those that have been listening to the show for quite a while will have heard, actually the first podcast we did about ultra running was in 2014 with a gentleman called Johan Stein, who also was on the podcast a few weeks ago because he won the Big Backyard Ultra. He's not coming back. He's not on this show. But I'm joined on this show by a couple of gentlemen who have taken it upon themselves to start an ultra running company by the name of Ultra X. Jamie and Sam, all the way from the UK. Thanks a lot for joining us. How's it going, folks?
Good, mate. Thank you very much for having us.
Awesome. Guys, you are doing something absolutely unique. You've just walked into this ultra running community, started a brand, you've got races in 4 countries, and you're here. So tell us a little bit about yourselves, where this has come from, and what is going on with Ultra X.
Yeah. I'll do me, and then Sam can do Sam. I left university. I didn't want to get a normal job. I took on a couple of big adventures. I rode the Atlantic and the Indian Oceans, and pretty much from then on decided that I'd have to do a career which involved being outside. I met a guy in a bar, as you always do, that told me about a race he tried to start in Jordan, in Wadi Rum in the desert, but he couldn't commit the time, and so I thought, let's try and start that up with him again. And that was 3 years ago. A year ago, Sam did the race in Jordan, the Wadi Rum Ultra, and we got talking. And then he'll tell you a bit about his background.
Yeah, so my background is actually almost the complete opposite. I kind of did finish uni, was like, you know what, I'm going to get a sensible job. But I didn't. So I became an accountant, and I'd never really considered myself an accountant. I kind of always wanted to run my own business or go and do something else. And I kind of stumbled across ultra running as a bit of an accident, as a bit of a bet dare kind of thing. I watched the James Cracknell documentary on the Marathon des Sables, and basically I'm quite stubborn and was like, you know what, that looks quite cool. I'll sign down and give it a crack. And they've got a very good way of making it seem like you won't get in. They say there's a very competitive kind of ballot. So I always tell people it's a little bit like Glastonbury. You get an email kind of a couple of weeks before. It's like, oh, Sam, registrations go online now. Make sure you're online. You've got a chance. And in my head, I was like, well, I probably won't get in. I didn't run at all this time. I played a bit of like football, a bit of rugby and stuff. So I was like, you know what? I probably won't get in. And if I do, it might be like fate. It might lead me on to something else. Yeah. So I, logged in, whatever, put your deposit down. Obviously, within seconds, got an email back saying, come
surprise!
I don't know how many people were actually online at that time. But anyway, I got in and I did the Marathon des Sables. And luckily, they give you a good 16 months in advance to kind of prepare. So I had quite a good amount of time to get myself ready. Did the race, and I basically got to the end of it and I enjoyed it more than I thought I was going to. I'd actually previously done a marathon about 4 years before and hated it, and kind of got to the end. I kind of winged it when I was at uni, got to the end and was like, that was shit. I'm not going to do anything else like that again. Right. And I finished this and was instantly I've got the bug, I was hooked. So it took a little bit of time, but about a year later, one of the mates who I did this race with, who knew Jamie from school, was like, "There's this race in Jordan, and it's like 800 quid. Do you fancy it?" I was like, 800 quid? Are you joking? A multi-day? How does that work? But I was like, yeah, definitely keen. And I found myself in Jordan under the control of the man I'm now business partner with, Jamie. And kind of got to the end of the week and was like, you've got quite a good gig here, mate. And I kind of realised that, you know, running from A to B in the middle of nowhere shouldn't be super expensive. Yeah. And I was really passionate about kind of the experience that multi-day running gives you and the opportunities that, like, I don't know, the whole experience thing. Yeah. And I was pretty passionate about trying to make it more accessible. So we kind of sat down, me and Jamie, a few times, and I'd actually just changed jobs, and we sat down, we had our first business meeting the night before I started my new job, basically planning Ultra X. And we spent pretty much the kind of 12 months planning how we're going to rebrand Wadi Rum and launch these series. And as of November last year, we went live, and that's incredible.
It's quite funny because you're not the first person, Sam, that I've spoken to, and actually had Tom Evans, who's just emerged as an incredible ultra runner, as you guys know, when he was on the show talking about MDS, like how he got to MDS was a bet in a bar with a couple of mates. So the reason why I highlight that is I want to ask you guys, why do you think people are making these bets? Why are people getting into ultra and ultra running? Why is it happening?
I think there's a trend between people are spending less on material goods and more on experiences, things that add value to their lives and they can tell a story about. I mean, all these social media apps and tech companies that we have, they're driven by one thing, and that's content. And it's a competition. I mean, they call it social proof. Is someone from a group of friends goes abroad and does this surf trip in Sri Lanka or wherever, or does this ultra marathon, and they come back and tell their friends about it. And I just think with now air travel being so cheap and the world being such an accessible place, I think, you know, our generation are hungry to explore and to push themselves. I think we're so obsessed with becoming the best version of ourselves these days. You know, we're told to do yoga, to eat a certain diet, to practice meditation, to do cardio however many times a week. I think people are just keen and hungry for experiences and challenges to push themselves. And there's no better thing to push yourself with than an ultramarathon. I mean, you go to places that you've never been before head-wise, and you come out stronger, and your comfort zone is bigger. I mean, that's the thing. It's about making things that are really hard to start with. They become easy as your comfort zone gets bigger and bigger.
Yeah, I think that's true, and I think people are searching for something like that, and then when we even saw it on a race last weekend. People sort of do 50k, absolutely hate it, but then love it, and then because there was 100k on offer as well. I had a message from a guy, next year I'll do the 100. It's like, but you've just told me you hated it, but then you loved it, and now you want to do more. It's quite strange, isn't it?
It is. I mean, Ranulph Fiennes says that, you know, the humans are really stupid. He would spend 95% of his polar trips across Antarctica and the Arctic hating it. Yeah. But within a couple of months back after these journeys, he would only remember the 5% good. Yeah. And I think it's the same with these ultra races. You just remember the good times. Yeah. And it's a natural progression. People are always wanting to go further and further and further. I mean, there are now 200-mile single-stage races. And they get the attention of people just because, you know, you want to work your way up. I mean, we started the Ultra X series to make multi-day racing as accessible as possible, which meant 3 times cheaper than every other option out there. Only 5 days off work, so you fly on a Saturday, you're back by Sunday, in some of the most beautiful places in the world that you wouldn't otherwise go. And then the other thing we wanted to do, which no one else does, is we wanted to find out every couple of years who the best in the world is. So we wanted to we're going to hold a world championships, just like Ironman, Kona.
Incredible. Let's just jump back, because you've just had a really awesome summary of Ultra X that I need to expand on, because to give this context for people that aren't really into ultras, something like what Sam said he registered for there, Marathon des Sables, that I've been to as well, as I said, in 2015, incidentally, with Ranulph Fiennes. There's a stat for you guys. He walked that year. I was quite disappointed. He was like 75 and only walking, but he was there that year. But I paid around about, I think it was about, entry for the race was £4,500, and that was before I'd bought my shoes. Only tested 3 or 4 pairs of different shoes at about 150 quid each. But I think all up, and hopefully Holly's not listening to this, but I might have told her before, I think I probably spent over £6,000 on essentially running through the Sahara, carrying all my own gear, having no shower, and only get given water, no food or anything else. So these races, guys, what you found out, are ridiculously expensive, right?
They are.
And you guys have come in, and one of your main objectives was to make it a third of the price. How does it even work?
Well, firstly, they don't have to be that price. They shouldn't have to be. You know, you shouldn't have to be an accountant or a lawyer or a middle-aged to be able to afford these things. The market for the majority of runners, you know, they don't earn big wages. They're slightly hippie. You know, they might be, they're adventurous. They're travelers. So we wanted to provide something that serviced this market as well.
Right.
What was the second question you just asked?
Well, I was saying, like, it's super expensive, and you guys have, like, how, when they're charging so much, are you able to, I mean, this might be quite a personal question into your business model, guys, but, like, you know, are we expecting to see something different in these races? Like, I know Marathon des Sables, as I said, you don't really get much. You get a pretty minging mat.
Yeah.
So, you know, is it that you're bringing races that are even more basic than that? Tell us a little, like, how have you managed to deliver these races at these price points?
I'd say compared to the Marathon des Sables, in terms of the treatment you get, it's pretty similar. I mean, it's
Right.
basic. You know, you bring all your own stuff. The only thing we do separately or differently is carry your equipment between each day, which means you don't have to kind of worry so much about, you know, your calories per gram and the weight of every bit of kit, and you can actually focus on the running, which makes it slightly more appealing.
Why did you choose to do that?
It was all about accessibility. Everything we do is really centered on, we want this to be as easy for people to come and be like, you know what, I can do that. And I think overcomplicating it and being like, oh, you've got to carry your food for the week in your sleeping bag is just another thing which can turn people off.
Right. Very cool.
So that was quite a conscious decision. It's not hugely complicated for us to organise a van and a lorry to take people's bags in between campsites, and it's just something quite nice to look forward to at the end of the day. And actually, the other thing is, it makes a big difference in terms of, we're trying to attract some of the most high caliber multi-day runners in the world. And in terms of recovery, being able to have sufficient nutrition at the end of every day and kind of eat properly throughout the week, it actually makes a really big difference to them, rather than being like, you know what, I need my race weight pack to be 6.5 kilos just so I can be the lightest out there.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and that's something that when I looked at your races, I was like, that's something that's super nice and is going to get exactly what you said. It's going to get people to be a bit more, in a good way, comfortable, that they can have their food and stuff taken for them so they can race harder. So you're essentially going to get more exciting races.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and doing 250k carrying, 8 to 10 kilos is a hell of a lot harder than doing 250k carrying, 1 or 2.
Yeah.
And the second part with how we're able to charge these prices, because we're looking for a volume model.
Right.
So the MDS is one race. There are other smaller series out there that go up to 3-4 races, but we want to have 30 races within the next 8 years. We want to have, and they want to be all over the world serving different markets. So Mexico, we were just there. We found out that the Mexicans love running, but that'll be mainly for the US market. The same as Sri Lanka and Jordan are great for the UAE and for the European market. So we're looking to scale pretty fast.
Wow, that's absolutely incredible. 30 races in 8 years. Well, like you said, the MDS has 1. Racing the Planet have 4 a year.
Yeah,
I think.
4 and a roaming race. They kind of move around every couple of years.
Right. Something else, talking about the brand before we get into the race location, guys, something else that you said is that you want to create a championship of ultra racing. Talk to us about that concept.
I think there's two things. Well, yeah. So the one thing is at the moment there's no official recognition of the best multi-day racer in the world.
Right.
And that means it becomes less attractive for the best ultra runners to do multi-day events.
Right.
So I think to attract those people, we want to have a world championship. But also I think it's just a kind of quite cool thing. You know, you want to find out who the best in the world is. That was the.
So how will it work then?
So like Kona, Hawaii, where it's been the same location for, I think, 45 years now, we'll choose a location which we're going to announce in the next couple of months, and this will become the home of the UltraX World Championships every 2 years to start off with. And these stage runners, they're not like cyclists or boxers or F1 drivers. They do not earn the money that they should from sponsors. They're not even like Ironman triathletes, which now can make a couple of million euros a year from sponsors. So we want to give these guys the recognition, put them on the world stage, and hopefully we'll be able to live stream the race or even get it onto a channel. And once you get the eyeballs from the TV boxes, then you can command the big commercial bucks and basically bring trail running from a small but seriously growing little niche up onto the stage where triathlon is now.
That would be incredible. Do you guys have any sort of stats on we were talking earlier about sort of more people getting into it and more races. Do you guys have any stats on the growth of trail running, of ultra running? How many ultras there was 5 years ago compared to what we see today? Or is that still a little bit unknown?
I can give you an illustration, which is that we've all signed up for the Eiger Ultra this summer, which is 60 miles in Europe. Last year, it sold out in 8 hours. So this year, we were told to fingers on buzzers. And it sold out within 23 minutes.
Wow.
So it is absolutely taking off. And so we are trying to consolidate a market. There are races all over the world popping up, but they don't have a strong brand image behind them. We're trying to become that Red Bull, that Ironman, but for the trail racing.
I think it's something that's quite forward thinking, because I was listening to Talk Ultra the other day, and Ian Corliss said that he was out there, or they're reporting on the race that Tom Evans recently did in Hong Kong, and they were saying that they had 2 to 3 trail races every weekend. Now, we're only an 8-hour flight from Hong Kong, and I've never heard of any of their trail races, so you'd have thought that we'd be in their target market, but we never really hear of those races. So there's obviously a lot more going on than we know about and that are promoted.
There are tons, and these are just feeder races. For us, that's great. If there are as many people as possible getting into the shorter ultra distances, then, as we've just spoken about earlier, they will work their way up the distances.
Let's talk about your races and the locations that are coming up, because I think, and that's what really caught my eye with you guys at the start, apart from seeing Sam absolutely struggle through UTMB Oman in December and thinking,
I don't know what you're talking about, mate.
what a great job, and randomly seeing Jamie at the various checkpoints, and he was probably looking at us, and as we were looking at him thinking, like, what are we all doing out here? But talk to us about your race locations that you've got lined up, guys.
We have Sri Lanka coming up in April, which yourself and a team from InnerFight are heading over for, which is epic. We have Jordan coming up in October, which will be the 4th edition of this race. And then we have Mexico in November. And our aim is to add at least 2 new locations every year. So we've got probably Peru coming up in 2020, as well as the Azores, which are a tiny little group, an archipelago of islands off the coast of Portugal. And our aim is relatively simple with these locations. They've got to serve a particular market, so they've got to be close to where a lot of ultra runners are. They've got to be extremely beautiful locations, because our aim is for people to go to places and see things that they wouldn't see otherwise, and for them to be relatively cheap and accessible to get to. So no start line will ever be more than a 4 or 5 hour drive from a main international airport.
Wow.
because we don't want people to come in and then have to get a bus and then have to get another connecting flight, and they're exhausted by the time they get there. So
but the journey to the start line of MDS is just so enjoyable. What's the name of that airport? Ouarzazate, and then what is it? 6 hours on that bloody coach, and it's
yeah. And then no loop, so you get the 500 people, men and women, lining up at the one stop you get, and their weird French goodie bag lunch.
It's the worst experience ever, isn't it? But that's something that's very, very interesting, like finding these beautiful places. And obviously it's interesting for us guys. Talk to us a little bit about Sri Lanka, and then we'll move on to Jordan. How did you guys pick Sri Lanka?
Well, as kind of Jamie says, we've got these criteria, and we basically just have a list of places at the length of your kind of arm that we're excited about, and it more or less happens like we sit down, me and Jamie, we pick our top kind of 5, then we kind of each of us will be allocated that country, and we would get in contact with as many people as we can from the region, get into contact with the tourism board, go through any contacts we might have in the country, and then we get to the point, okay, we think this could work. Can we find a route? Can we find a local tour operator who will be able to manage this route for us and create a race? So we basically know almost everything, and then the final step is we arrange a visit, which we did last, which is actually what we did when we were heading over just before we came over to Dubai, where we met you. Were just spend a week where we basically go over the entire route, and that can be on little trail bikes, or it can be on 4x4s, and it can be on kind of whatever, and check it out and check it's suitable, and we start selling it.
Talk us, I think it'd be quite interesting for people to go. I mean, we could use Sri Lanka as an example because it's coming up quite soon. Talk us through that experience from when, okay, so you guys have picked the country, we've got a route now. Talk us through, like, people arrive, how does it go? You said something quite cool earlier as well, that you want to get it within a week, so it's like only 5 days off work. So talk us through the whole sort of that experience for the runner.
So competitors will arrive on a Saturday on a variety of flights from all over the world. Saturday night, they're in a hotel, which in Sri Lanka is in Negombo, just north of the capital, Colombo, on the beach. Everything from when you land is included. Absolutely everything from water, accommodation, etc. On the Sunday morning at 10 a.m., we'll have the race briefing, which is where the organisers and the crew and the local tour directors brief the 50 to 75 competitors. Right. And then we'll go through everyone's mandatory kit list to make sure that they have everything. And this is as basic a process as just making sure that everyone has all their kit laid out on their bed, and then the crew will come around and tick everything off. Right. From then on, they're issued with their race number, and they're officially ready to race. And then we'll load up around lunchtime onto a couple of coaches and head into the centre of the country to the start line, where we'll all camp out under the stars on Sunday night and start the first leg, stage 1 on the Monday.
So that's, sorry to jump in, that's when they essentially become sort of self-sufficient. They're out of the comfort of the hotel. Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening, racers are on their own.
Exactly, mate. Yeah.
Nice.
So once from Sunday evening, you start being given boiling water from the organisers with which to rehydrate your dehydrated food. Yep. And then you're self-sufficient onwards. Each stage you get given checkpoints every 10 kilometres where you can receive medical support, shade, water. What we provide that other races don't is we have osteopaths and physios which can work on you at each stage checkpoint if necessary, and at the end of the day. The first 3 stages are slightly different distances. Thursday is always a long stage, which is 70k and starts in the middle of the night at around 3 a.m. with head torches and light sticks is on your backpack.
Amazing.
And that'll take some people 20 hours to get there. And then on Friday is the shortest stage, 30k. And then it's a big like barbecue at the camp and prize giving. And that's where we all recount stories of the week before. And then Saturday is transferred back to Negombo, and the same thing again in the hotel. And then Sunday, people are free to fly back home wherever they live.
Incredible. So it's an action-packed week for everyone. And that format will go. You'll use the same format for the Jordan race. Is that right?
Yeah. It's kind of another one of our key things is to make the format consistent across everything. So 250k, 5 days, always be a long day. The long day might be on a Wednesday or a Thursday, but the format in terms of you will arrive on a Saturday evening, briefings on Sunday, party on Friday after, and like prize giving ceremony on the Saturday will be the same in all of them. So if you've done Jordan, you'll know what to expect in Sri Lanka and so on.
And that's a really important point, is that when people that do Ironman or other races, the quality of the care is exactly the same. They know they're going to have to go and register, get their race pack, get their chips. It's all the same, so that you take as much thinking out of the whole sign-up process as possible. We want people that have done One Ultra X to be able to know that the blueprint is exactly the same. Even a lot of the crew members will be the same, which is important because, so much think about these races of the people that you spend it with. And if you've got a good crew and you can get a good relationship going with, it's just so good for morale and just for the good times generally. Yeah,
I think absolutely true. And I think that's what, it's a very nice comparison you guys are making to Ironman, because that whole experience is somehow quite unique, but it's the same every single time, and people know that there's an opening party and a closing party or the awards ceremony, and you go and empty more of your bank account into Ironman's pockets and all this kind of stuff. It's but they're getting that same experience, and I think what we spoke about before, people are chasing these experiences. So for you guys to be having a similar rollout on all of the races is just phenomenal.
Yeah, it's important for us to keep it the same. The only we'll have to make small tweaks when we start hitting up locations that start at altitude, which is one of the headaches that we're thinking with now, because so many of the amazing places in South America, you fly in, above 2,500, 3,000 meters, and we sometimes wonder to ourselves, do we really need to be getting into the game of having to worry about people with altitude as well? Haven't we got enough? Yeah. But,
what about terrain-wise? Because if we compare the two races that are obviously closest to our demographic, Sri Lanka and Jordan, you've got some quite different terrain. What were you guys surprised with what you found in Sri Lanka, or what did you find?
So Sri Lanka's kind of mainly hard packed trail. So versus Jordan, it's definitely more runnable, and I'm expecting some fairly punchy times as a result of it, especially the first couple of days where there's always a couple of people who like to fly out the blocks. It's because actually it's it's basically dirt tracks and not too technical. So it's kind of more your standard like trail running race. Right. The challenge is going to be the humidity. It's warm and it's like 80% humidity. So making sure you keep hydrated is probably going to be the biggest challenge for people.
I think I've been to Sri Lanka quite a few times to play rugby, and that was definitely the humidity. And then when it rains, it brings quite an interesting dynamic into things as well.
Not being able to lose the heat from your skin. Sweating becomes pointless, doesn't it? Because you're wet anyway.
You're completely wet. So what about elevation wise? Do you guys look for a certain amount of elevation in the countries? Is that a consideration or not?
The only consideration is when we get worried that there's going to be too much. Essentially, our routes, we kind of work out where's the most beautiful areas, the spots you want to run through, and then we work the route around that. So if there's a bit of elevation, that's fine with us. But obviously, like for example, Mexico, we're doing a parts of Iraqi, and there's a ton of and we're like, we can't fit this all into one day because you can't expect competitors to do that. So that's the only time we would really take it into consideration. But we don't have we need 2,000 meters, we need 3,000 or whatever.
And we've got to be smart, so we wouldn't ever put three terrible traits to a race in the same race. So we wouldn't have 10,000 meters of elevation, 35-degree day temperature, and 100% humidity. We try and keep it relatively doable. We do not want to break people. So many races out there sell themselves on being the toughest, or and trying to attract those nutcases that just want to hurt.
Yeah.
We really want to strike a balance between a really high completion rate, a great experience, but also an opportunity to really test yourself.
Yeah, I mean, the way that you guys just described Sri Lanka, hard trail, weather's nice, views are good, people are going, this is not too bad. I'm not sure.
It will be. I mean, they're all tough, but like these races, I mean, they're as tough as you make them. Yeah. I mean, people can go out hard and can try and compete, and there will be some people that do that, but flip the switch, and we really want to try and encourage people that haven't done ultras or aren't endurance athletes to come out and give it a crack, because traditionally these events have been sold as superhuman hard. Yeah. But if you come and you go slow and you maybe walk 50% of it, by doing 30 minutes light trot, 30 minutes marching with poles, you may be out there for many hours, but that's fine. I mean, our cutoffs are extremely relaxed to the extent that you could literally walk the whole course. Our aim with you guys is that you can finish it.
Right. I mean, that's something that the guys of MDS, if we're comparing to that, it's quite interesting on two things that you said there. Like, they market themselves as the toughest foot race, but their cutoffs are incredibly generous, and they have a ridiculously high completion rate for a race that's supposed to be so hard.
Yeah, that's marketing versus sales. So they'll marketing it by trying to attract people by calling it the toughest, but then they'll want everyone to be able to complete, so they can tell all their walking friends that they can enter and get their race entries as well. Yeah,
I think that's an interesting part of perhaps people that are just getting into ultra running, guys, and I'd like to get your thoughts on it. The fact that, as you said there, you can walk bits, you can do half an hour. Tell us about what your thoughts are on that. If people are, they maybe run a bit, but they're not huge runners, should they be afraid? How would they handle a race like one of your Ultra X races?
We massively want to encourage it, because we almost try to avoid the word runner or race when we talk about our events, because at the end of the day, it's actually just an adventure. It's a personal challenge. Yeah, there are some, maybe 10, 20% who take it as a race, but for most people, for me, when I did my first ultra, and for most people who do any of them, it's really just kind of a physical challenge and an adventure. And actually, you kind of joked that we're talking about Sri Lanka being gorgeous and nice weather and good trail. But essentially, this is the holiday,
What a stitch up! No, I believe you.
I remember coming back from MDS, and I don't know if you'd say the same, but I was like, you know what? That was generally one of the best holidays I've had.
It was good.
It's a different way of doing it, definitely. But I think people need to understand that it is kind of it's kind of a cool experience kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it's a very good point. I mean, sometimes that whole marketing thing that we see, this is the toughest race or this is the longest one, it's a single stage, it's kind of putting people off. Whereas I like where you guys are coming from in saying that we're offering adventures. You must have said 5 or 6 times beautiful places in the world. And it's, I think that people should be listening to those kind of things rather than worrying too much about the running.
Totally. I mean, I think the best thing about these events is that you get to spend time in amazing places, in these cool campsites with people, some that are like you and some that aren't like you at all. And you build this real camaraderie, because of the shared experience and the shared pain sometimes that you're going through. And there's nothing like the bonds that are created, when you've been dishing it out for 70 kilometers and you've taken 20 hours and you're broken and you're all there regaling stories and popping blisters together. I mean, it's a character building experience. But the one thing I'll say is that the intensity is low on these events. I mean, from all your marathons over the years, you you can hit the pavement hard for 3.5, 4 hours, and it can absolutely kill you, and you'll be feeling it for the next week, 2 weeks in your legs. But you're never going at that sort of intensity at our races. It's super low. You're eating all the time. You're hydrating all the time. One of our biggest issues as race organisers is not dehydration, because people are so aware of that. They're drinking all the time. It's hyponatremia, which is flushing out all the salts and electrolytes because you're just drinking plain water. So we have medical experts and a big team of doctors, and both local and European, that are monitoring people constantly and making sure that they're not flushing those vital electrolytes out.
So from that perspective, from a safety perspective, because I guess that's something that people who are new to this kind of racing worry about a little bit. But give us an idea of what you've mentioned, osteopaths and stuff. But give us another little idea of what support is there for people. What is the safety net at these races? Are people going to get lost? And what happens if I hurt my foot or I get a little blister on my pinky? What's the story when it comes to that kind of stuff, guys?
If you get a little blister on your pinky and you're worried about that, you're probably not going to be best suited to one of our...
I best pull out. Can I get a refund?
But no, obviously having good health and safety, to be honest, is probably the most important thing as an organizer. So firstly, no one's ever got lost on one of our events. It's pretty much impossible. Like we have flags every kind of 20 feet, basically, nice pink fluorescent things that you can't miss. We give everyone trackers, which have kind of SOS beacons on them. So if you feel like you're in panic, you can click a button and we will get a message with your location so we can find you really quickly.
Wow.
Then we have doctors, qualified adventure kind of certificates and stuff like that. We've got a health and safety operator at all our events. And then we've also got a local doctor just in case someone needs to go to like a local hospital and they need kind of, I guess, a local contact with a bit of language experience and stuff like that, who can speak English. So yeah, we think we're pretty set for health and safety stuff.
Because I think that's where some people might sometimes trip up. And wasn't there a documentary about something that happened to someone in one of the deserts? I hate to say it was rape, wasn't it? And there was a documentary about it on one of these ultras. And it was a long time ago, but it put a lot of people off for a long time. It's like, I'm going to be out there, and what if I get lost? And, I think a lot of people are worried, but you guys sound like you've got pretty much everything covered.
Yeah, when we were building the idea for the brand, we wanted to remedy all the mistakes that we thought that other organizations did. And one of those was making sure that everyone had trackers, and if they got lost or if they needed help, they would be able to press a button and we'd be able to find them. And the other thing is course marking. We didn't, again, it goes back to this accessibility thing. We didn't want it to have to be a self-navigated thing. People, when they're blowing out their arse, don't want to have to worry about whether they're going down the right trail or not. Yeah, so we spend so much time making sure that every marker is clear and that people aren't going to get lost. And then some of the vehicles that go up and down the course, or the quad bikes or the 4x4s, depending on the race, they'll actually have extra markers with them. And if there's at any point where they think it's not completely clear, one of the crew members will just jump out and remark it again. So phenomenal. We take that stuff incredibly seriously, because if it went wrong, that stuff, it would cost us a whole lot more time and energy.
And I guess you guys having done events like this, as you said, you sort of come from an experience and you know what's good in races, you know what's bad, and the way that you've built Ultra X is almost, I guess, without sounding arrogant for you about it, it's like the ideal ultra experience that there is, really.
That's exactly what we're trying to do.
And that's why it's such an exciting space for us to be in, because we're at this point, we feel, where trail running, ultra running, activity general among people is taking off, yet there aren't these big brands that we have to compete with. I can't think of many other sectors where there aren't 10 big brands all bustling for a piece of the market share. Yeah. With us, we have the capacity to be market leaders quickly, and that is absolutely, we make it very obvious to become the biggest, baddest in many senses in this sector.
We did actually, at the very beginning, we did a bit of research, and I mean, we obviously you can't work out how many ultras there are in the world because, as you say, there's so many like weird niche ones where only kind of someone's dad and uncle and 5 other people do it. But we found out that there was something like 12,000 ultras, or specifically single stage as well, ultras in the world, and longer than 200k or whatever. Right. And only 4 of them, or only 5 of them, had a series more than 3, like a brand with more than 3 races.
Right.
So, definition, next year when we've got 5 races, we're actually the largest multi-day series on the planet.
Wow.
Which is somewhat ridiculous,
isn't it?
But yeah, it's exciting.
You spoke there a little bit, or we've spoken about the distance. 250k. All of your races are going to be 250k. It's this 5-day format. How do I get into it if I think 250 is a bit too much for me. I'm one of those people. I'm a bit on the fence. If you guys, is there stuff coming to bridge that gap, or what can we expect?
Yeah, we weren't actually going to announce that, Marcus, but I know what you've led us on to.
I'm trying to set you up for the question. Well, okay, we don't have to talk about it then. There might be something coming.
Yeah, I think we probably can. I think it's fine. But we're going to announce the Ultra X 125 series in the next few months, which are going to be half distance, half time events. So instead of 250k over 5 days, they're going to be 125 kilometers over 2 or 2.5 days. Nice. And it's going to be over a weekend, just having to take a couple of days at the end of the week off. Right. And this is going to be an ideal stepping stone for people that don't think they can quite do 250 over 5, which is fair. Yeah. But for people that would like to get there one day. And again, I mean, it's so boring going over it again, but we're trying to make this so easy for people. So. Yeah. There'll be races. There'll be less isolated locations because we feel that they have to be within an hour and 45 or 2.5 hour flight from these places if people are flying into them just for a long weekend. So they'll be based around Europe. They'll be in North America, New Zealand, Australia, and actually more of our series races will be half distances within the next 5 to 10 years than full distance. I love how you're
making it super accessible on not only on travel but on that distance level as well, guys. I think that's something that's really cool for people.
Yeah, we want people to ideally do a full distance Ultra X every year, and then to be able to do 2 half distances every year as well. And that all comes down to them having to spend the least amount of money and to take the least amount of days holiday.
We didn't get to that. Why did you come with 250k? Why does that seem like the magic number?
It was just something that we thought was accessible to get done within 5 days. It had to be no longer than 5 days. We actually toyed with the idea of it being 4 at one stage and adding another day's tourism onto the end. But we felt in order to compete and to hopefully overtake soon the other models out there, we needed to have a similar distance to what was pretty widely accepted as a common multi-stage theme distance.
Any thoughts or plans that you can't tell us about to go longer? A double Ultra X at 500?
That would be... We'd be then doing that sort of race series that we spoke about earlier, just making it longer and longer and longer. I'm not sure. It would only be for you and your crazy.
Little bit. No, we can't do 500. It's not within our brand guidelines until 2023, and then something happens. But what are you guys' thoughts? Obviously, you've both done a lot, and I was actually just thinking before we started recording earlier. I was like, it's great that we're going to speak about Ultra X, but you both have done some incredible events. What are your thoughts on longer ultra races that are out there at the moment? Like there's 5. I was speaking to Johan, who I spoke about at the start of the show. He's done a 500k race in the States. He's won it once and DNF'd it once or something like that. I mean, what are your thoughts on really long stuff?
I mean, my cousin's about to take on one of these 500k in 10 days in Australia, up in the Outback in the Northern Territory. Wow. And it sounds absolutely crazy. I mean, if I leave the whole business side or things aside and just talk about, in sense of providing something for people to absolutely take themselves to another sphere, then I guess it's cool. I mean, the world's getting a nuttier place, so And what's the amazing thing is that humans keep on stepping up. Every distance that keeps getting longer, people don't think that humans can do it. I mean, 20 years ago, if you did a marathon, you were hardcore.
Yeah.
Now every man and his dog does, one marathon at least at some point.
Yeah.
So with these 2, 3, 4, 500K races, I mean, it's exciting, I guess, to see how far and how fast people can go. We love the following the Western States and the Hard Rock 100 and those 100-mile single stages.
Yeah.
To see people like Jim Walmsley go sub 14 and just, it's impossible to think that humans can go that fast for that long, but they just keep on stepping it up.
Yeah, I think this is. I don't think before humans have had these avenues to actually see what they're like actually capable of. It's pretty ridiculous what we are and what you are when you go and do these things. And they kind of say, and I think it applies the same for an ultra, that when you do a marathon, you can have one of three reactions. You can either finish and be like, fuck, never doing that again. you finish like, that was cool, but I can do it faster. Or you go, right, okay, what's next? What's bigger?
Yeah.
And I think it's exactly the same with ultras. You get some people who do an Ultra X race, 250K, and they're like, okay, or we have a lot of people. Actually, one of the reasons why we did Ultra X was because we had a lot of people who did Wadi Rum, and they were like, that was awesome. I want to do it again, but I'm not going to come back to Jordan.
Yeah.
And it's the same with kind of stepping up. You get people who do it, and they're like, okay, now, as Jamie was talking about his cousin, he did Wadi Rum with us a couple of years ago, and he wanted to find out what the next thing is, and it's kind of that masochistic thing of like, if I'm not broken yet, what's going to break me?
Yeah.
And finding out what your limit is, and for some reason that's appealing to quite a lot of people now.
Yeah.
And increasingly there are the opportunities for someone to take some cash off you to do it.
Yeah, I love it. It's it's very true. I mean, you're right with the marathon. They are the reactions, but I think we're seeing more and more people moving into this, and I don't know what the limit is. It's interesting. I don't think there is one, but it's quite interesting that if we go back to sort of the comparison between Ultra X and Ironman, is Ironman has topped out at that. Like some people do Ultra Ironmans, or but there's not many of those events. But there seems to be an increasing number of ultra running events that are longer than anything we've ever seen before. So it's very interesting where the sport's going, I think.
Yeah,
I think if an organizer sets a distance, there'll always be a couple of madmen and women that step up and try and do it. I mean, the sort of endurance stuff that amazes me still to this day is, the race across America in the US, 3,000 miles. The winning time is 7 days.
That's incredible.
And these guys that do it, these endurance cyclists, they sleep for I think 3 hours, and they bungee cord their head back to the bottom of their bib shorts because their neck muscles have given up from looking up for so long.
It's actually that I've got an interesting story about that, because one of my clients did race across America, and he had that disease or that scenario called Sherman's neck that you were speaking about, and they gaffer taped his helmet onto around his head and onto essentially a broomstick that went down his back to keep his neck up, which actually, luckily, later on in the race ended up saving his life when he fell asleep riding his bike and fell down a canyon. But it's that. I mean, that race is incredible, and folks that are listening that want to know more about that race, go and read the book Hell on Two Wheels. It'll put you right off doing that race. It's just, but yeah, I don't know, but that, I mean. Yeah, Jamie, you've done quite a bit of rowing, mate. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure. You've done some very extreme stuff. So yeah, it's interesting.
Low intensity. I mean,
yes.
the difference between endurance sports physically and expedition type stuff is that the expedition stuff is slow, and you do not have to be fit for a lot of it. You don't have to be cardio fit or even muscle strength fit to be able to do that. So rowing in ocean is so. You can have I don't think my heart rate went above, apart from when we capsize or if it's scary. I don't think it goes above 85 beats a minute. It's the same with sailing or pulling a sledge across an ice cap or, climbing a mountain. Some of the fittest people on earth can't deal with altitude sickness, and then some of the unhealthiest smokers deal best at high altitude.
Yeah,
but as soon as you get to endurance stuff where you're using your body, and like endurance cycling and ultra running, I don't have anywhere near as much experience in that sphere, and I have so much respect for the people pushing the boundaries in that area.
Yeah, it's wild. Talking about, it's awesome, Ultra X guys, but you two are both still athletes. What races are you able to race? Are you able to continue to do challenges, or is Ultra X taking up all of your time now and you're sort of retired legends?
Ultra X, yeah, no, we're retired, and we now only watch people go through this thing. No, we do try and stay kind of almost like marketing, and just seeing what other events are doing. Like we were out at UTMB Oman, which was actually just great for us to see what one of the big players in that space does and how they organize their events. And we kind of like to keep fit ourselves and challenge ourselves, and that's kind of you got to be the brand, you got to try and live it, and we love the adventure and traveling space as well. So we've actually lined up. We're doing a race. Jamie mentioned earlier, Eiger Trail, in July, which is Jamie's first ultra. So he's a little nervous.
No pressure.
I wasn't going to tell anyone that.
But now we've just told the world. Do you want to buy a training program? I've got something to say.
Sam's also got UTMB coming up this summer, which he didn't tell you about. So he's training hard for that. And he does 100 milers, single stages, every now and again.
Well, he was very impressive in Oman. Didn't speak to us too much because he was suffering, but smiled at the end. So, and Carlin got some good pictures of you, so that was a win. But it's good that you guys are super active in it as well. And I guess when you go and recce a country, that probably involves quite a lot of effort, endurance-wise anyway, running around and checking the routes. And if you've done all the routes, then you sort of have done quite a few miles.
Yeah, we do. We just in Mexico a month ago, we were walking the trails and clocking 40 or 50,000 steps a day. But it's nice to be able to experience, at least in some way what the guys are going to go through and the girls are going to go through, because we ideally have to be like, right, this part of the course is not picturesque enough, so we're going to have to divert, or this canyon, we wouldn't be able to get health or medical access to, so it's too dangerous in that sense. But we're traveling.
Or this part of the route is just too technical, and you shouldn't be running along this.
Yeah,
a la UTMB Oman, you mean?
We've heard that from a few sources.
Yeah, we could carry on for another hour or so talking about that and the races out there that are probably.
Would you take that one? Would you do that, Marcus?
We were speaking about that at the weekend. It doesn't really appeal to me.
Why?
I don't know. I don't know why it does and why it doesn't. I thought about it, and I would like to run more, and there wasn't any running in it. I'm not a massive fan of hiking. If I was a massive fan of hiking, I'd do hiking, not ultra running. And that sort of, but at the same time, the brutality of seeing what we saw in Oman, and then talking to, hearing from you guys and hearing from our guys that were in it, there's a certain part of me that, maybe does want to do it. But I think it takes a lot of different training than what I'm doing and that what ultra runners are doing. And I think you can't go to UTMB Oman and think that you're going to an ultra running race. You're going to an ultra hike. That's what it is. And I mean, there's talk of them doing 100 miler this year as well.
I think they say they want to do 3 different races, or maybe even more, and make it in the same format as the one in Chamonix. Which is going to be, it's going to be brutal, especially if they have that much ascent and that kind of terrain for 100 miles.
It's wild. Yeah. I think what would make that race a little bit more interesting is if they could cut in some decent chunks of runnable section.
Yeah,
because I mean that was the Hajar 100 race. That's what made that interesting, because you've got a lot of steep climbing. You've got 13%, 20% in there, and and then you've got runnable stuff where people, then they go and run and they completely destroy their legs, and then there's another climb. I think that makes a race a little bit more interesting. But I don't know. I've listened to a few different podcasts about UTMB Oman, and I think the community is a little bit torn as well. I don't know what you guys have heard, but I think the community is a little bit split in two. Like, some people are mad keen to come back, and others are like, nah, that's not a running race. It's a hiking race.
Yeah, well, we're saying it was really interesting being there and then also seeing the kind of after effects of it, because I mean, I personally, I'm in exactly the same boat as you, in that I prefer kind of running, and I probably hadn't prepared properly for it. To be honest, the main reason I did it was because we were in Dubai at the time, and I knew it would get me a free pass into the UTMB this year. So I wasn't really kind of super race fit or mountain ready.
Goat fit.
Yeah, but I just was not expecting that kind of course, and I don't think anyone really was. So when we kind of got to the end, and you're talking to people, and 70% of people had dropped out, and there were a lot of people who were kind of actively a bit angry. Which is a shame, because it was such a well organised event. But I just don't think the course was communicated well enough. And then obviously over the last couple of months, there's been this spin on it, basically being like, oh, is this the toughest single stage race? And going through that whole marketing vein, as we were kind of talking about earlier, that this is super hard and can you complete it? And I reckon that's gonna attract quite a lot of people.
I think you're right.
So I mean, I'd be fascinated just if you were going to get, or maybe you should just make some of the InnerFight crew and go along there and watch again next year.
I have some guys that already want to do it.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Go and do what you did this year.
We had a great time this year. It's super nice. Alila Hotel, they do a good breakfast, and it's a great place to see angry ultra runners rip their bibs off and just sort of chuck the towel in. It was I think what you said there is super important. Like, it was communicated. It should be communicated in a certain way. But I think also as ultra runners, if you kind of know what you're doing and you look at the profile of that course, which they put out, and the distance, you can very fast figure out that there's a lot of up and there's a lot of down and there's not a lot in between. So there's not going to be a lot of running.
The funny thing was, though, and I'm not a kind of climber at all. In fact, I much prefer flat stuff. But the ascent wasn't the issue at all. It was just the technicality. It was the fact that even when you're going downhill, the times when you're supposed to be making up time, you couldn't move. I mean, Jamie spent 9 hours at the finish line because he thought I was going to be coming in a bit sooner. Because I just found it really frustrating that I couldn't move as quickly. My body was actually all right. I was just mentally a bit. I was just frustrated, kind of thing. It's
a crazy race, but I mean, going back to the topic, I think Ultra X races, people are going to have a lot better experience, guys. So I think that's what's obviously super important, and I'm looking forward to them. And I think from what you guys have said in the last 45 minutes or so, I think a lot of people will really be looking forward to your races as well. So on that note, how can people get involved? Where are you guys? Where's the best place to connect with you?
You can connect with us across all the standard social media channels. We're Ultra X Co. The website is www.ultrax.co. Ultra-x.co. James just reminded me. And you can give us a Google where we'll be there.
If people want to still enter for Sri Lanka, just to put dates on it, guys, Sri Lanka is when?
Sri Lanka is the 13th to the 21st of April this year.
Okay, and year. When does registration close?
Registration, we're technically full, although we're accepting, so there's always dropouts. and we probably expect a few, so you can still sign up, and yeah, we'll keep that open for a while.
Get in touch with the guys if you still want to race in Sri Lanka. And the Jordan race?
Jordan race is the 5th to the 11th of October. Am I right?
Okay.
Yeah, 5th to 11th. Same format. Registrations are officially open as of last week.
Cool.
And then Mexico is the 2nd to the 10th of November. And you can also sign up for that at the moment.
Awesome. So hop over to ultra-x.co and check the guys out. Fellas, thanks a lot for your time. That's been awesome. Really interesting insight into what you're trying to create. And I would definitely agree. There's a from what we've seen in the rise in ultra runners, there's a massive thirst for it. And from what you guys said, people are looking for these experiences. And you've really quite sold the Sri Lanka race to me. I might go to that one. But I think, the format that you guys have spoken about is absolutely awesome. So really appreciate you guys coming on the show, and hopefully people will get in touch and get involved in your races.
Awesome. Thank you very much, mate. Big fan of the podcast anyway, so thanks for having us on.
And can't wait to host you in a couple of months.
Awesome.